Hello, I'm Novelet Witt, and welcome to Morgen Talk. My guest today is Mike Griffiths, who has been a council member in the city of Torrance for the past 6 years and was recently re-elected to serve District 6. Hi, Mike. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you, Novelet. It's been a while, but it's been a difficult time for people to get together, and here we are talking on video.
Yes, and of course, congratulations on your re-election.
Thank you very much. I'm really pleased to represent the city for another 4 years and representing the District 6, as well as, of course, the whole city.
Lovely. Now, in a recent city council meeting, the council voted to not have the mail-in ballot placed throughout the city. Torrance is actually one of 2 cities in the 88 cities throughout the county that's decided against it, due partly to aesthetics and vandalism concerns, among other things. What other options will Torrance residents have with the mail-in ballots, and will the council reconsider maybe revisiting this issue again?
No, great, Novelet. I'm really glad you asked, because there's a lot of misinformation being spread throughout the community on this issue. First, I want to clarify that, yes, we did vote on this, and it was a 7-0 unanimous vote against placing these boxes in city parks around our city. 5 boxes is what the county was asking for. And it was voted down for a lot of reasons, and I'll just speak for myself as opposed to speaking for the whole council. Personally, these boxes, depending on which version they would put, weigh up to 3,000 pounds. This county wanted these boxes put into place for a period of up to 5 years, and they finally backed down to say they would accept a 1-year commitment to having these boxes installed. And these boxes were going to be installed at the county's request in various parks located throughout our community in unmanned and unmonitored locations. And these boxes would collect ballots, but the ballots would sit in the boxes for days at a time before being collected, and in my opinion would be risked for vandalism or potential damage through various means that might happen in these boxes, especially if they're in a park. We have problems with the parks all over our city with vandalism, graffiti, and other things, and I think these boxes would become a target for that. And I personally would not want my ballot sitting in a public park in a metal box for days at a time, and then have us as a city have to have these boxes in our parks for a minimum of 1 year. And that was probably some of my strongest objections to these boxes specifically. The other bit of misinformation that was going out is that somehow by denying these boxes that we were making a decision that, well, people won't be able to vote in Torrance. And that is completely untrue. And this election, just like the election that we completed in March, will be utilizing the new vote centers that were introduced in the March election. So we will have the vote centers throughout our city where people can come and vote in person, or they can drop off their mail-in ballot without waiting in line at the ballot box that will be in every vote center throughout the community. And we don't have those vote centers yet identified. The county and our city staff and our school district are working together to identify the locations for those vote centers. Those vote centers, by the way, will be open for up to 11 days prior to the actual election day. So people will have an enormous amount of time to bring their ballots safely and securely to any one of these locations, to either vote in person or to drop their ballot box, drop their mail-in ballot into the collection box at these locations. And additionally, the city is, as they have in the past, will have other drop boxes available for voters. Previously in the past, we've had those in our libraries and our city clerk's office. And it's my understanding that we will continue to do that, even though our libraries are officially closed because of COVID. I see no reason, and we have to work this out, why we can't have our lobbies open. The libraries are still staffed. Why we can't have our lobbies of our libraries open to put the boxes in, to collect the ballots, and then at night the library will be closed and the ballot box will be secure, and that will be a safe place for people to put their votes. So if people talk about wanting a safe and secure place to put their ballot, which is a critically important thing, then I think they should have the option of using the ballot boxes, the polling places, And of course, as we have in the past, we also have the U.S. Postal Service. Every single household, every single registered voter in Torrance will receive a mail-in ballot so that it's postage paid, and they can, if they're comfortable, put that out in their mail right at their home without even leaving their home, and it will be picked up at no cost to the homeowner, to the voter. They can drop off their ballot at any mailbox throughout the city, at any of the available mailboxes that we currently have, and we have many, many mailboxes throughout the city. You can drop it off at any post office or any postal center where there's a USPS service, and most postal centers have those types of collection capabilities. And people will have, I think it's up 30 days to do their mail-in ballots. So there's plenty of time to be able to get their ballots in through any of those means. And I really feel that no one's right to vote is being impeded by our decision to not allow these ballot boxes to be put in our parks. The other part of your question was, are we going to reconsider that? Yes, we talked about that at our last meeting, to reconsider possible different locations for putting ballot boxes, different time limits on how long those ballot boxes would stay. And so I think we are all in agreement that we're willing to discuss options to allow those in a way that we think would be pleasing to most people, in such a way that people will still be able to get the vote in. Their votes will be secure and safe, protected from vandalism or any other type of attack that an unmanned, unmonitored box might provide. And I'm sure we will find a compromise, and I'm very confident that that will happen. But at the options that we were given at the last meeting when we voted against it, we weren't given an option that was satisfactory.
I see, I see. All right, thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry, that was a little bit long-winded, but it's an important issue. I mean, obviously,
yes.
People's ability to vote is super critical, and people's votes should be as easy as possible, but it also needs to be safe and secure. And I've heard that from so many people, that they want to make sure that they can safely and securely vote. And obviously, we have the added compounding issue of COVID, making people a little bit more uncomfortable potentially to leave their homes. And I'll add another unofficial method. If somebody is uncomfortable leaving their home and uncomfortable putting their ballot in the mail, if they reach out to me, I'll come personally pick up their ballot if they're in Torrance, and I'll make sure it gets into a proper ballot box if anybody's comfortable with that. And I will be happy to do that. I don't think that people are going to have any trouble voting in the city. There will be so many means for that, and I think we'll have a very successful election in Torrance.
Excellent. All right. 2 years ago, Christopher Andre Mitchell died in police custody, and as a result, there've been overwhelming demand to have the city create a civilian oversight commission. Is this something the city is seriously considering?
Well, you're right. And 2 years ago in December, we had an incident, unfortunately, where a young man was shot by the police, and I can't go into the details of the incident because the family of the young man is suing the city, and so we're prohibited from speaking on any of the details of that case while that case is still in process. But as far as a civilian oversight committee, which has been requested primarily by members of a group called Black Lives Matter, who have been attending and calling into our meetings since shortly after the incident. They've been asking for this and many other things, and it seems like when we did give them things, then they would add additional things to their list of demands, and it became a situation where it didn't seem, no matter what we would offer to them in response to their requests, that it never seemed to be enough. So now they're asking for these additional requests, like a civilian oversight commission, and they want the officers fired and things like that, which we technically don't have the capacity to do as a city council. These people are all employees of the city who are managed by the civil service process of our city, and they have to go through proper hearings to have any employment situation handled. And again, I can't get into specifics on that about that as far as the case is concerned, but as far as specifically a civilian oversight commission, and I can't speak for the whole council, but I think that a common feeling is that we have a significant amount of oversight already for our police department. We obviously have our own police department, our police chief and her staff to oversee the activities of the department themselves. We have the city manager who oversees the police department, and we have the city council who oversees the city manager and all the departments within the city, all being able to provide various levels of oversight in these situations that involve our police department. In addition to that, we also have the district attorney's office, who gets involved in every single one of these types of incidents where there's been a shooting, and the DA's office does their investigation in addition to all the internal investigations that is done. And so I think the general feeling is that we have enough oversight, and to add another level of oversight by civilians who aren't trained or understanding of the rules and regulations and so forth that police officers have to go through, will create an unnecessary level of oversight that isn't going to add to the situation in a positive way, but could only create potentially a lot of discord and conflict with how the city and the police department want to run the department. And I think if we wanted the civilians to run the department, then I think we would have to alter the way that our whole city is set up. And just at this time, we just don't feel that a civilian oversight committee is really going to do anything potentially than to drag out these situations that come up from time to time. And so at this point in time, that's I think how the council feels on that. It's not a requirement that we do that. And you know, obviously, if it was a requirement that we have a civilian oversight committee, we would comply. But it's not something that I think most police departments have. And we think that we have a very, very good police department who's well-trained, well-run, and well-managed, not by just the police department themselves, but through our city management and our city council. So that's kind of the position that we've been, I think, generally taking on the civilian oversight.
And how does that differ from Pasadena? I understand they already have a commission oversight committee. They already have an oversight commission there.
I am not familiar with what Pasadena has done. I know that they had an incident recently. I have heard something to the effect that they did decide to put in some sort of oversight committee. I don't know anything about it. I don't know how that committee is created or who is appointed to that or how you even get to be a part of that committee. So I can't really speak to it because I don't know any of the details surrounding that.
Okay, all right, I understand.
Sure.
So there's another issue that was addressed in the recent meeting, shared mobility pilot program, which was voted against as a, quote, waste of city resources, unquote. What alternative would the city recommend for residents who still rely on public transportation?
Yeah, the shared mobility devices was something that has been talked about for quite a number of years, actually. Back early on when I got onto council in around 2015, we created our initial shared mobility experiment, something called Car to Go. And this was a program where people would park these very small cars throughout the city for people to be able to use with their credit card. And it was supposedly a cheaper alternative to owning a car, and you'd be able to pick up these cars throughout the city easily via an app on your phone. And it was a tremendous failure. People did not, in our city, find that type of shared mobility was useful. We've seen other types of shared mobility at cities around Torrance, not including Torrance, like scooters and bikes that have had various levels of success. And I think where there has been success has been where there's much more high density type of housing and retail and commercial situations and residential density. But Torrance is a very spread out city. And we felt that from what we had seen through the other cities' experiences with scooters specifically, is the scooters tended to become hazards, especially when they were undocked, which is most of the scooter setups that I've seen. People would use it and then just drop it somewhere on a sidewalk anywhere, and it would look bad. It was a hazard to others who were utilizing the sidewalk. The same is true with the, I don't know if you remember the bicycle endeavor called Lime Bike, where they put bikes throughout the city. And this wasn't in Torrance, this was in some of our neighboring cities where they did this. And these bikes just got used and then just dropped anywhere, and the bikes quickly became into disrepair. People vandalized the bikes, and it just really became from everything we could see, a failure. And I've talked to so many different homeowners associations, business groups in our city, and they all basically have said, we don't feel like that's something that we want to see in our city, because we don't really see that the people in our city would really utilize that. As well as the other factors that are concerning to us as a city is liability. If somebody takes a scooter or a bike out and has an accident, gets injured, are we going to be in a situation where we have a lawsuit? Lawsuits are tremendously costly to a city. Even if we're in the right, we still have to defend the lawsuit at our expense. Those types of lawsuits are very, very difficult. And you know, every little scratch or bump that somebody gets on a scooter or a bike in this manner, if they sue us, it's, you know, probably $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 minimum just to put up a defense. And so right now we feel like there's a great service that we have through our Torrance Transit. We have a bus system that serves our whole city, and currently, and it has been since March, Torrance Transit continues to be free for all people, all riders in Torrance, or anyone who uses our buses anywhere we serve. And so the cost of that service is obviously can't beat free. And even before it was free, it was very, very low cost. And that service gets people around pretty well. But obviously it's not as accessible as just grabbing a scooter and going right away and not having to wait for a bus. But it's obviously a lot more controllable of a situation. It creates, I think, we feel like less liability for the city. And in general, I just haven't found people in our community who really want bikes and scooters scattered throughout our city, even if they're in a docking station. And I'm not sure bikes and scooters that are put in docking stations where you have to put it in a very specific place, people will like that. And I need to see some more statistics on docked mobility devices like scooters and bikes, how successful those have actually been, because I've seen docked bikes in other cities, and every time I go by these racks, the bikes are all filled. There's nobody apparently using them. And because of the fact that they're docked, they're less convenient than the undocked version, because you have to always return it somewhere to where a dock is. And that creates a little bit more problem for the user, in that they have to know where they're going, where there will be a dock for them to leave their device, so that they don't get charged, because until they return it to a dock, they're going to continually be charged for the time that that device is out of the dock. So there's a lot of issues that we still have with it. I'd like to see a lot more information. I'm not completely opposed to looking at it again, but I don't, from everything I've seen and heard in our city, it's not something that people are really clamoring for. And I would like to see some statistics from other cities that have been doing it, to really see what kind of success and benefits it has brought to those communities. And I'm happy to revisit it at any time. And as a matter of fact, one of the things I suggested at the meeting was, you know, let's meet with some of the business associations in our city and hear from them directly. Is this a tool that you would like to see to help improve access to your businesses in our community? And if they are, then I'm open to doing a pilot. But if nobody's interested in wanting to do this, if our business community doesn't want to do it, our residents don't want to see devices strewn about in their neighborhoods that'll create problems, then it's hard for me to support it. But I am trying to keep an open mind about it.
Okay, all right. Thank you again for sharing that with us.
Sure.
So before we go, is there anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, I would like to share something else that is really important to the city that most people don't know. And that's, there's been many different legislative bills coming from the state assembly and the state senate that are trying to take away the control of cities to be able to manage our own land and our own decisions where and how much housing we want to build and what density we want to build it at. And our city, at my request back in July, we created a resolution opposing these types of bills that take our ability to control how we manage our land in our city. And we wanted to take a strong position against that. And we believe that managing a city's land and its housing is really best left to the city and not to people who have never even set foot in our city and are making decisions up in Sacramento and trying to create a one-size-fits-all scenario for developing new housing and so on and so forth. And so as a result of this effort and these bills that have been coming after it, I have created a new organization. It's a volunteer organization that is not officially sponsored by the city, but because of the resolution that we passed, its mission is basically the same as what our resolution stated, and that is that we want to protect our rights as a city to manage our own land and our own housing decisions. And so I started a volunteer organization called California Cities for Local Control. And this organization is in the process. We just started at the end of July. We have about 40 volunteers currently who are helping me to reach out to all 2,500 elected officials throughout the whole state of California and every city to see if we can get them to support our mission to protect our rights as a city to manage our own land and housing needs, and to make sure that we can let Sacramento legislators know that this is something that we as cities deem to be critically important to our management of our communities. And we don't want the state impeding our ability to make decisions that we think are best for our city. And so we've been starting that since the end of July. We've been starting a reach out to elected officials. We've compiled a list of all the elected officials in the whole state, and we've reached out to quite a number of them already. We've got great support so far from over close to 25 cities have already signed or are in the process of signing resolutions similar to the one that Torrance did. And we've got over 75 city elected officials now who have signed on board the California cities for a local control. And we think that once we get the momentum really rolling and get a lot more cities and elected officials behind us, that we'll be able to make a united stand to Sacramento, letting them know that we as the cities of California care about our communities and we want to be able to manage them ourselves. And that's something that unfortunately the public is not very aware of what's been happening with some of these housing bills. Where I'll give you an example, the most recent Senate Bill 1120, which actually passed in the legislature, but died because it didn't get voted on until after the deadline of the session, and so it technically failed, even though it did have the votes to support it. That bill would have taken and allowed any single-family home, R1 zone property, any single-family home, unless you're in a historic district, to allow that house then to be split into two lots and to allow you to build a duplex on each of those two lots. So taking one single-family residence, single-family R1 property, it would allow up to 4, and some say even 6 units onto one piece of property where there's a single home today. And without any regard for parking or infrastructure for water, power, schools, or anything else like that. And we've worked very hard to develop our city in such a way as that we protect the integrity of our city, making sure that we have enough resources for all the people in our community. And we feel bills like this are going to be extremely detrimental to our cities. And the only people we think are going to benefit from bills like this are developers who will go around buying up all these single family homes, tearing them down, splitting the lots, and building these high density residents in our single family neighborhoods. And I think if people really knew that this was happening, they would be really upset about it. And that's why I formed this organization in an effort to try to prevent that kind of thing from happening without our ability as a city council to make a decision whether we support it or not. So that's something really important that is kind of flying under the radar. And I think more people need to pay attention to these types of housing bills coming from the state legislator.
All right. Just one question. The concern, I think, is, well, in California, we know housing is a big issue.
Sure.
And we have quite a few single-family lots, large lots, that, again, we don't have the space to add more single-family homes. So what is the alternative to get more homes here? We have
and there are alternatives for that, and actually it's happening right before our eyes. We're seeing more and more situations where retail space is shutting down and becoming vacant, including some of our larger malls having now significant unused space that a lot of people think might be a great alternative to build more housing without destroying our individual neighborhoods that are already well established, and people moved into those neighborhoods for a reason. They wanted to have a yard, they wanted to have some open space, and they're willing to pay for that privilege. And I think it's important to protect the character and quality of those neighborhoods that want that, but at the same time still be able to provide places for higher density housing where it's not going to damage or destroy the integrity of a community, where it can be better planned, better managed, and maybe have better access to transportation and other things that our suburban neighborhoods are really not adept at. And so I think that housing is critically important, and unfortunately these bills that are coming down are not going to achieve some of the desired results that they say, and some of those results that they want is they want more affordable housing. And I can guarantee you that these houses that would be built in these types of situations won't be affordable. And the other thing is that they say that this will help solve the homeless problem. Well, I can't see how a homeless person is going to be able to live in a home that's part of a single family neighborhood and afford the cost of those types of homes. And so those all need to be addressed in different manners. And these bills are not providing that. They're just opening up the floodgates for developers to come in and just slam housing wherever they think is reasonable, and without a real solid plan and how to do that in a manageable way that doesn't create more problems than it solves. And when I say more problems, I'm concerned about, if all of a sudden we've got 4 times the housing in the neighborhood that only supported a quarter of that before, where are all these people going to go to school? What about the police and fire and the public safety that will be required to manage and protect all those additional people? Of course, the parking and the traffic issues that come along with higher density living. Right now, we have lots of problems with streets where we have a higher density, where people don't have enough parking in their apartments and their condo units, and they have to park on the streets, and that creates all kinds of problems for us, and we can't solve some of our environmental problems, like sweeping our streets properly because there's so many cars on it. So there's all kinds of problems that these solutions that are being proposed don't take into consideration, and we want to make sure that if they're going to propose something, give us the option of saying yes or no, or being able to say, well, you know, in this particular neighborhood, we need to make sure there's enough parking on the property to handle the number of people that may live there who could potentially be driving cars. And so those pieces are being left out of these equations. And so some of these new opportunities where there's retail space that's going away, I think there are some opportunities for developing properties and housing. And I look forward to the opportunity to see what kind of proposals come down for that. And I would be more supportive of that than going in and plundering, in my opinion, some of our neighborhoods that we've worked so hard to develop in a way that is appealing to the people who want to live there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with us again today. I really appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure to chat with you. I look forward to the next opportunity.
Excellent.